Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to another installment of Wealth Insights with Mitch Silberman, strategies for pursuing an amazing life of significance. I'm your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff. As always, we have the star of our show, Mr. Mitch Silberman of Silberman Wealth Strategies. He'll be joining us momentarily for another wealth management related discussion today. And I'm excited about our conversation that we've got teed up for you today. It's surrounding this topic that maybe doesn't get the love that it deserves within the financial services sector. Specifically, it's just one of those topics that maybe it's not as exciting to chat about as maybe investments might be, or stocks overall. What am I talking about? I'm talking about life insurance. And in fact, the topic of the day, 3 reasons why life insurance should really be a part of your wealth plan. So luckily we've got Mitch to lean on with his regular dealings with clients and the conversation surrounding life insurance that he has with his clients. But really what we want to do is we want to identify these 3 core reasons. What are they? Well, here they go. Reason number 1, you want to provide your loved ones, with cash, right? Or maybe it's even the causes that you care about. So there's the cash to help your loved ones or the causes you care about. That's the first. The second, life insurance can also provide cash to maybe address a personal need or a want for that's down the road in the future. Third is more business oriented, where it can provide money that you require, to address a business concern. So 3 different goals that life insurance can really help you achieve, and we're going to get into just how that really works and why it's so beneficial overall. But first, I think we ought to bring Mitch out to get that conversation rolling. So Mitch, good to see you. Welcome aboard today. Happy to have you here.
Always great to be with you and our audience, Ryan.
Hey, Mitch, I always look forward to the two of us getting together. We always tend to have some great conversations surrounding these wealth management related topics. Today, we're talking life insurance, right? So I just rattled off, Mitch, the 3 key reasons why it should be a part of the wealth plan. But why don't we pick this apart a little bit? How about we start with talking about this idea of life insurance helping to provide some cash for a loved one or maybe a cause that you care about? Let's start there. Talk to me a little bit about this idea and the types of conversations that you're having with clients on this front.
Sure. What you said earlier is so true that it's part of the wealth management planning. It's a great strategy for the right person in the right situation. When you're young and starting out in life and you have a wife or a spouse or children or a business or real estate to protect, it's leverage. Literally for pennies on the dollar, you are transferring the risk from your balance sheet to the insurance company's balance sheet. You're literally saying, I'm going to pay you pennies on the dollar so that if something happens to me, an early death, an unexpected death, that I want my family, my loved ones, or causes I care about to be taken care of. And we've heard the horror stories, and sadly, they're true. If you're not here, can your kids still go to college? If you're not here, can your spouse stay in this home, and for how long? So it provides an amazing amount of leverage if you care about your family and the business and the life that you're building together. It's a very important component of overall what you do.
So, Mitch, when you're sitting down and having some of these conversations with your clients, obviously life insurance being a part of that complete wealth plan, do you find that maybe your clients are even initiating this conversation around life insurance? Are they leading the charge, asking you about life insurance as a whole, or do you find this is something that you need to approach them with during these conversations?
Well, what I find is when I work with people, really it's on me as the professional to do what I call an in-depth discovery meeting, which is really, this is all about them, and you listening, your life, your dreams, what you care about. So it's my role to really probe and see if it's even appropriate. Ryan, if you ask some of my clients, does Mitch offer life insurance? Some of them would say, I don't know. I don't think so, because it's not appropriate for them. Others would say, oh boy, it's been a huge difference in our lives. And I'm so glad he's so well versed in it because it's really made a big difference. So it's really on me to bring it up. But to what I said earlier, when you're young and starting out in life, it's great to protect those you love. Most of the people I work with now, they don't come to me to make them wealthy. They come to me to keep them wealthy. And in certain situations, you can use the tax advantages and the leverage of life insurance to still incorporate into the overall wealth strategies.
So, Mitch, let me ask you this then. When you're looking at a particular person's plan,
Mhm.
are there any signs or signals to you, the wealth manager, that maybe indicate, hey, life insurance is maybe a tactic worth exploring for this given set of circumstances? What might some of those signs or signals be for you?
Sure. It's a bit of a loaded question because of what I've seen in my 28 years of doing this. I had one recently. I will keep the name secret to protect the innocent, but a client came to me and said, I purchased a life insurance policy last year. And I said, oh, now she bought it from someone else, which is fine, but I'm her main advisor. And I said, well, what was the purpose? It was to put the kids through college. And I said, but your kids are teenagers. And she said, but that's what they told me. And this is a very interesting case because it's a legitimate life insurance policy, a legitimate professional, a legitimate company, but I hate to use this word, sold for the wrong reasons. So, and I said to her without, because I care about her, that life insurance, permanent life insurance is a long-term thing with surrender charges and penalties built into it. And your children are teenagers. And she got very upset. And I understand. So that's a perfect situation where it was really used for the wrong reason.
Yeah, and obviously that's never an ideal circumstance when you're having that conversation after the fact with the client. But let's get back to the planning side of it then here, Mitch. When you're going through these conversations, obviously we just touched on those three goals. The very first one being to provide for loved ones or a cause that you
Mhm.
care about. The second one that I mentioned was this idea of maybe using it to address a personal concern or a need for the future, like
Sure.
college tuition, like you just mentioned there. Talk to
Right.
me a little bit about this because I feel like the layman might think, well, life insurance, I thought, is meant to merely provide for the loved ones. How can this be utilized to be able to
Sure.
be, worked for a need?
Without getting into too much of the weeds, the two basic types of life insurance are temporary and permanent. Temporary is inexpensive. You're renting it for a period of time. If you outlive it, which most people do, it expires worthless. Now, you could say, hey, I paid for something I didn't need, but the good news is you're alive. Your loved ones still have you in their lives. When you get to the permanent side, that's where you can use it as another planning tool. You're allowed, if it's structured properly, to overfund a permanent policy. And there's different ways to do it, different companies that offer it, different ways to have it accumulate. But the whole idea is that you can use the tax laws legally the way they're meant to buy a permanent policy, put as much as you can into it, and it grows in a very tax efficient, tax preferred method that can be accessed later on in life with very preferential tax treatment if done properly.
So when you say if done properly, Mitch, when you're having some of these conversations with clients, do you find that maybe this is the one of the parts of life insurance that might be overlooked? Is this idea of using it to help benefit or address a future need?
Yeah, precisely right. I have one client who is single, unmarried, no children, a very high earner, maxed out everything, maxed out 401k, maxed out IRAs. And years ago, I said, I'm going to recommend something which is going to sound counterintuitive, which is life insurance. And I warned her, when your friends say, why do you need life insurance? You're not married, you don't have any kids. This is why. Because in her case, and oftentimes, the cost of insurance is less than the cost of taxes. So we structure it in a proper way to minimize the cost of insurance and the death benefit, but to maximize the cash accumulation with that tax preferential treatment down the road. It's a way to supplement retirement.
Roger that. And then, Mitch, that third and final reasoning behind why life insurance should be part of your wealth planning toolkit is this idea of it allowing you to utilize the money tied up in the policy to help address a business concern.
Right.
Obviously, we've got some business owners that are part of our audience
Oh
that are
yeah.
probably honing in on this one in particular. Talk to me about this idea and just how this falls into place.
Sure. In fact, I had a client recently, a very successful business owner. He was very blessed that his daughter married a man that wanted to take over the business and worked in the business, very capable. and was working on a transition of the sale. So I had to work with the CPA and the attorney. Of course, we want to work as a collaborative team on behalf of the client. But I did bring up to my client, you're selling your business to your son-in-law. We hope he's successful. We hope he's around for a long time. But if God forbid something happens to him, what's going to happen to that sale? What's going to happen to that business? And we had a very long discussion, again, involving the attorney and the CPA. And ultimately what we did is we bought, in essence, almost like a key man policy, where the seller of the business is the owner, and the beneficiary, and the son-in-law is the insured. And so this is a way that to protect the business, the sale of the business, and also to create a lot of cash down the road if the business needs it. So it's really just, in fact, today the client said, this was one of the best business decisions I ever made. So I'm so glad that we structured it this way.
Wow, a great example. Appreciate you kind of shedding some light on that because, yeah, I mean, this is a massive, massive benefit that could be utilized for business owners. And, Mitch, before we had jumped on here to start recording our episode today, you and I were talking about these three different things that really help highlight really why life insurance is so versatile. And it's this idea of liquidity being one, leverage that you mentioned already on the show, and then this idea of certainty. Talk to me about these other two. We had addressed leverage, I think, already, but talk to me about this idea of liquidity and certainty, how it comes into play with life insurance.
Well, I will share with you on a personal note, I have 3 children, and when they were born, we bought policies on them, one of the permanent kind. And the whole idea is, if they live, and they are, that's great. These permanent policies are accumulating in a very preferential cash environment, a preferential tax environment. So my wife and I are the owners. If they're good kids, which they are, we can transfer ownership to them, but it's building up a cash value in a really remarkable way. And also the flip side of that, which is morbid, we don't want to talk about it, but I know as a business owner, if something happened to any of my children, I'm not going back to work anytime soon, but the bills continue. So there's, of course, with all life insurance, you receive it income tax-free, estate tax-free, probate-free, and a lump sum. And it just helps you get rid of the expenses that are still there while you're grieving. And of course, you have that certainty to know life insurance companies don't go out of business generally, and they don't deny claims as long as there's no hanky-panky going on. So it gives you that level of certainty. If something happens to the insured, there's going to be that cash given to you rather immediately.
I love that, Mitch. We've thrown a lot at our audience, in terms of these values, why life insurance should be considered within the wealth plan overall. And if there's one thing that I'm coming away from this conversation is that the focus here when it comes to this conversation about life insurance and whether or not it should be a part of your wealth plan, I'm talking to you, our audience, is that this whole conversation is the focus of it is really on the person. It's not necessarily the product. Would you agree with that, Mitch?
Yeah, it is all about the person and the family. In fact, I have to share with you a business situation that I did for a client about 23 years ago. The matriarch of the family owned a lot of real estate. I mean, a lot. And I said, when mom passes, you're going to inherit, the family's going to inherit all this commercial real estate. But then Uncle Sam comes along within 9 months, wants to get paid. What we want to avoid is you have to sell those buildings or sell those properties in order to pay off the IRS. There's stories like that all the time. In fact, many years ago, the owner of the Miami Dolphins passed away. His kids inherited the Miami Dolphins, Ryan, and the stadium. They had to sell the team to pay off the IRS. So one of the most compelling reasons, if you're in that category, is using life insurance as an estate planning tool so that you don't have to liquidate anything at the wrong time for the wrong reason. Instead, you get a lump sum, which then you can pay off the silent part of the IRS. The other thing I want to bring up too is that as a registered investment advisor, of course, we talk about achieving your goals and making a plan so that you can live with and what you're on track to achieve. But when you get to investments, you want to diversify your investments. And we all know that. Everyone agrees about that. But when you factor life insurance, there's also a way to diversify your tax buckets because there's taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. Can't get all three at once. So this is another way as a tool to diversify your tax buckets, not just diversify your assets.
Mitch, I love that. I mean, that's just a fantastic story. The Miami Dolphins. I mean, what a great example, to talk about this idea of paying back the IRS. I mean, at the end of the day, that is something in the back of all of our minds, and we got to build our wealth plan around that, when the time comes. So, Mitch, like I said, we tossed a lot at our audience in terms of information around life insurance. Maybe they're sitting there scratching their heads, thinking maybe this is something I should be considering and something maybe worth talking to Mitch and his team about. If maybe they want to continue this conversation with you or somebody on your team, how would they best go about, reaching out to you guys to keep this conversation going?
Listen, I love talking about this. I'll talk about these subjects all day long if you allow me. So reach out to me. My website's the best way, www.silbermanwealth.com, and it's B as in billion. And insurance is like any other asset class. It needs to be explored, needs to be analyzed, needs to be reviewed. Should you have it? If you have it, do you still need it? Do you need more? Do you need it at all? I mean, these are legitimate questions. And the one thing I want to caution you about, there are some very talented professionals in my industry who can be very myopic. They just focus on investments. That's all there is. And they may be brilliant at it and honest as can be. And that's great. But there's so much more to your total life than just, hey, how are your investments performing?
Well, Mitch, I appreciate you kind of really peeling back the curtain into this topic today, sharing your thoughts on life insurance, why it's so beneficial, and I'm excited for for some episodes to come where we'll probably unpack this topic a little more. But I think today really we did a nice job with a high level overview on those benefits for somebody given maybe the goals and things that they hope to achieve with their wealth plan. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Looking forward to the next episode with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Ryan.
Alrighty, looking. Hey, we want to take one final moment to thank you, of course, our audience, for jumping aboard with us here on the episode today. And as always, if you enjoyed the conversation, you took something away from it, do me a favor, like the show, give us a comment, subscribe to it on whichever platform you're checking us out on, and then, of course, share this information with friends, family, business owners, anybody that you feel would really benefit from these conversations. Because at the end of the day, these are the strategies that would help potentially put you on your pathway to an amazing life of significance. We've got some great conversations teed up for you down the road. We would hate to have you miss out on any of those. So for Mitch Silberman, I'm Ryan Ruff. We're saying so long, and we thank you once more for joining us on today's edition of Wealth Insights.